Hi, it's about 10 to 12 on Wednesday. On my way to Sheffield, but I just needed to do a quick pit stop to have a quick chat and catch up with somebody who has been an associate for a long time with independent thinking and is a big part of has made independent thinking what it is. And she would have loved to have been here today, but can't for various reasons. So I thought I'd just go in and have a little chat. And when I refer to her as a living legend, once we've had the chat, you'll understand why both of those terms are so very appropriate. But before I do, there is the quick concern of doing my democratic duty, because there's a post box over there and I need to vote. Okay, there we go. Do your work, democracy. I'm here now. Let's see what happens.
Hello, stranger. Lovely to see you, Ian.
Hello. Fancy seeing you here.
This is it.
You got some lunch on for me?
Afraid I have.
Oh, that's good.
Know, it may be your last. No, I'm only kidding.
Right, lovely to see you. Let's.
Do you want to go round the back?
I'll go round the back. There we go, Juliet, sitting pretty in her lovely garden. So, for the audience, many of them might have thought about outdoor education, but maybe don't know where to begin, or are scared, or are worried, or thinking it's going to make things hard, or they haven't got time. So, how do you work with people who can understand there might be some benefits, but don't quite know where to start, Juliet?
If I'm with them in person, I actually start by being outside and having these conversations. So you can call it a mobile meeting or a network walk, but the moment you're outside, you start thinking and feeling differently. So even having a cup of coffee outside is different to inside.
So you've got them outside for a cup of coffee, but they're saying, look, we've got so much to cover in the curriculum. We've got so many things to do, and there's naughty John in the corner. I don't want to give him a stick. What's the next stage?
I check what people's understanding of outdoor learning is, because very often those who aren't supporting outdoor learning or going outside have a very complicated definition of it. So they say, oh, it's got to be in touch with nature, or isn't it forest school and we don't have anybody trained. Whereas if you just start thinking that outdoor learning is any learning that happens outside, any learning, then suddenly where the focus is on the learning.
Okay, I'm going to take people outside. I know it's important. What are the things I need to think about?
I think it's really helpful to think about routines. So a very simple thing is, if you're taking it from a curriculum angle, then you can literally say, what would naturally fit into what I'm already doing? So a good example is maths. You might be looking at right angles, and so we'll say, well, that works obviously well outdoors. If you look here, if I say, are there right angles outside? I'm sure most people would go, yes, there is. You can make it much more interesting though outside, because then you can say things like, yes, but do right angles exist in nature? And suddenly that becomes a really interesting investigation that you can work with the children how they're going to find this out. And suddenly children will do one of two things often. If you take something like this, they'll take two objects that they can find and they'll put them together and they'll go, is that a right angle? And you'll go, well, how do you know that? How are you going to test that? So they'll do two things coming together.
People will also have sort of practical concerns and issues and queries as well. So what sorts of things do they need to be thinking about before they take their class outside?
Okay, first of all, teachers know their class better than anyone, and furthermore, they are teachers and they come to the outdoors bringing a huge skill set that they can use really well outside. The next thing is that everybody takes time to acclimatise. So do it in small bites. Meet your children in the playground or the school grounds after the bell and do 5 minutes there. If you're a secondary teacher, actually say to the children, next time you come to my lesson, we're actually meeting here, and take the children there before they actually disappear off, so they know exactly where it is that they're going to be meeting the next time, and do 5 minutes outside. It could be a quick game. Yeah, everybody knows a circle game. Do a circle game outside. Don't worry whether it's proper outdoors or not, just get outside and get used to being there with your kids.
Well, that from a primary perspective, it's sort of, yeah, that makes sense. But then I wonder whether the secondary teachers and the secondary leaders out there, whether they feel that it's not for them, that it's more for the little kids. What's your take on that, Juliet?
There is a myth about secondary schools and outdoor learning. There is expertise there and dedicated teachers throughout. The next thing I'm always delighted about is that in my experience of working with secondary teachers, they are highly creative because they know their specialist subjects so well. They can twist and turn concepts. One of the most amazing demonstrations I've ever seen has been the half-life of radioisotopes being demonstrated by a physics teacher throwing cones into the air and looking at which way they landed on the table.
So we've talked about how to get children outside and classes outside and some of the things that can be done. There's loads in the books and on your website. But why? Why should we bother? So what are the benefits of being outside? And from a leadership point of view, we're at a leadership conference, what should the leaders do if they want to enjoy these benefits of having children and young people learning outside?
So the moment you step outside, the well-being is an almost effortless side benefit. Children are being physically active. It improves everybody, staff and children's well-being. There is a freedom and a space that everybody enjoys. And then on top of that, most of the time, I haven't seen a single study yet that says that attainment goes down. It either stays level or it improves. Children's engagement improves. The quality of discussions that are on task improve. I mean, it's you don't have to work very hard at this.
So what could the leaders do in order to start building on outside learning in their schools?
Well, first of all, there are many ways to introduce and develop and embed outdoor learning. And so you kind of have to find your own way. But what you do need to do is value it and make that obvious, whether it's, as I've said before, networks and mobile meetings outside. It's whether you do drop in to see how the outdoor learning sessions are going with your staff. It's providing continuous professional development of different sorts, including it in your improvement strategies. All these things make a difference. And time, and point out that you don't need necessarily for them to be outside every Wednesday afternoon. Sometimes that can work, but for others it's as simple as saying, well, look at what your planning is and look where the outdoors is naturally going to fit anywhere, or where children will particularly benefit.
I introduced Juliet as a living legend, and I said both of those words were very important, and we've looked at her legendary work around learning outside, but also I talked about the living bit. And your current situation, the reason why you can't travel, one of the reasons why we're sitting outside and I'm a few metres away from you, is because of something you're going through at the moment. Maybe you can just explain what that is, if you're okay with that, and what you've learnt from this phase in your life and what schools and school leaders can learn from your experience. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yes, in December 2020, I got an unexpected diagnosis of an aggressive blood cancer called acute myeloid leukemia, and it came out of the blue. I'd signed up to donate a kidney, to be a living kidney donor for my next door neighbour, and I got a phone call on Friday night going, "How are you feeling?" And no consultant ever phones you on a Friday night without something being seriously wrong. And they said, "We need to get you into haematology." And when they said that, I went and looked online, as we all do, and I realised that I probably had a blood cancer. And at the moment, I've been through treatment. It hasn't been successful. I was given a terminal prognosis in January 2023 with weeks, stroke, months to live. And with the quote being, it was highly unlikely I would make it to 2024. And here we are, halfway through. So how lucky am I?
And what have you learned mentally, psychologically, from your response to the diagnosis, and also now from effectively medically living on borrowed time? I keep stopping myself from saying, "Come on, Juliet, we haven't got much time," thinking, "Oh, actually, no, I shouldn't say that." We've got plenty of time.
Yeah, it's a case of we have and we haven't. And for me, I live every day. I get up in the mornings and you don't know if this is going to be your last day. But if I can explain, many years ago, I was visiting a French friend and they had a cherry tree in their garden. And after 10 days of living with them, I bit into one of the beautiful cherries and there was a maggot. And I was like, oh no. So I bit into another one, there was another maggot. And I went through the whole bowlful and every single cherry had a maggot. So after a day of panicking, I decided, right, I can't open those cherries, but they were so delicious, I'm just going to eat them whole and spit out the stone. So that's what I do with the cancer. I pretend it's not there. It does come back to me, and of course I'm living with it, but I try not to let that rule my life. And yes, I have thoughts of panic. I have probably about 20 to 100 thoughts of panic every day, but they don't dominate. You know, they come and go, and I know I'm going to have those panicky thoughts, but I just think, oh, well. And I'm going to die with lots of loose ends. I don't mind.
I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm just going to say see you next time.
Brilliant. And thank you so much for recording this. And for the people who've come, fantastic. I always remember you are doing a fantastic job, and don't ever forget that.